Hello, good morning, everyone. And for those who are watching us on different time zones, good evening or good morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. And for the purpose of those who are new in our platform, my name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, or CTS, and we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co creating, contextualizing, and customizing our programs with our world class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, including Petronas, Sony Mobile, PruLife UK, Ayala Group, as well as now we're in Brunei, so BLNG and Shell, to name a few. And the reason why we are organizing several interventions, including this interview, is because we would like to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt in the next normal, those who find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a hybrid team, and for those who are afraid that they can't keep or their team or their business. And so, to be able to stay relevant and continue to lead effectively, do join us in this intervention. And today, it's my great pleasure to introduce our leader. Christian Chua is a veteran professional speaker with over 20 years of training experience. He was also the president of the Asia Professional Speakers Association in 2008 to 2009, and also a global MDRT speaker, especially in Miami and Florida, creator of Maximum Career Profiling Tool and Xtreme Behaviour Profiling Test, authors of several books like How to Be a Successful Magnet, Referability Factor, Rapid Networking, Skills, and Making a Fortune while sipping coffee. Isn't that amazing? I'm getting excited. Appearance in international media interviews and coverage, including BBC, Thomson Reuters, Australia CH7 or Channel 7, Philippine Broadcasting Corporation, Malaysian BFM, Channel NewsAsia, Brunei Newspaper. Oh, just nice. I'm in Brunei. And Korean newspaper. He has engaged a large audience, over 10,000 in Jakarta, to as small as 5 people. Wow, what a huge range, right? He has proven to be engaging both in live and over virtual broadcast as well. So, without so much further ado, I'd like to invite Christian with me. Hi, Christian.
And good morning, Marilyn, and good morning, everyone. It's good morning here from sunny Singapore.
Yes, thank you so much for making time for us today. And I mean, we're looking forward to be able to add value to our audience today. And so let's get started. So I know that you're a specialist or an expert around customer service and and as well as sales, right? And that's what how we actually get to have our first conversation around this space. So, but I'll be asking you a bit more around leadership and transformation, which also, I mean, part of doing customer service and sales, I would say. And so I look forward to be learning from you, similar to how we can add value to our audience as well, right?
Right. Go
Yeah.
right ahead.
Mhm. Yeah, so my first one would be like for you, for us to be able to understand where you're coming from. So do share with us your leadership experiences, if you have influencers, or even if you have a leadership style that you'd like to share with us.
Okay, so I'll jump right into what triggers me and get me excited most. The leadership is such a big universe, and there's consultative leadership and so on. But the one that seems to always get me excited is the one that shifts the paradigm, gives you thought-provoking new ideas. And each time I see a leader with a new idea that have never been tested before, it gets me so excited. So
Mhm,
I guess the one that give me a lot of inspiration and
mhm,
influence is our former Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. So in
Oh
case
yeah.
all of you don't understand how Singapore developed, everyone knows now it's a successful country. But not so long ago, in the 60s, late 1960s, it was a fishing village with only 720 kilometers. Think about New York City with only the 5 boroughs. That's just that dump, that swamp is supposed to be transformed into a nation. So Lee Kuan Yew, with his vision, came up with a lot of new ideas that have never been tested before in the world. And one of those controversial one was probably be what we call the Central Provident Fund, where every employee is forced to save 20% of his salary for an
Mhm.
old age. So people say, oh, that's against human rights and all those. But when it turns out so well, because with that, people who retires in their 50s and 60s actually has savings. And with that, we eradicated homeless, probably only country like don't have homeless. So
Mhm.
his policies really, when I look at his biography, he dared to challenge the norm, even when large nations have proven traditions. He would challenge them. So he's one of them that really inspires me. And when I do corporate training right now, I do exactly the same to the leaders. Just because it's been done for 10 years or 20 years, why can't we just sit down and relook at it and say, is there something else we can improve? So that's your short answer.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. And again, like it's kind of common, especially for Singaporeans, to look up to, with Lee Kuan Yew because of the great work he have done for us, right? I mean, I'm just flashing his name. If not everyone yet does, heard of Lee Kuan Yew, which I kindly doubt. Because like I mean, it's he's globally known for the work that he has done, despite that Singapore is very small. He actually like made Singapore as one of the most famous countries, I would say. Smallest, but one of the smallest, but one of the most famous for the work that he did for Singapore, right? So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And having said that, looking up at Lee Kuan Yew, so what is leadership for you then?
Leadership, it can be defined in so many ways, but I think in the nutshell, the most important thing to me is you're able to lead and people are willing to follow you willingly. So the key word here is willingly. So once I was doing a leadership talk in a military camp to the junior officers. So one senior general with a 1 star, he said, Christian, I don't even need this influencing skills and leadership skills because I have this. I tell them to jump, they will jump. I tell them to sit, they have to sit. Okay, so I can rule with authority. But I said, during a war, do you think you want the soldiers to fight willingly or unwillingly? That's how wars are won,
Mm-hmm.
because the willingness to fight and give the extra is the same in a game or in a team where they really work with so much enthusiasm. Then he says, I got what you mean. Maybe I should just sit down and listen and hear something different. And after the workshop, he actually said, now I really understand what you mean by influential leadership, to lead people that is willing to follow you, do it willingly. So that's the first thing. I think leadership is important. But rather than just lead, which I would like to fashion today's conversation is on um, being a great decision maker
Mm-hmm.
and being a thought leader. This is what distinguish between the entry level leaders and the real leaders. Okay, because everyone can lead in terms of command, but how many can bring
Mm-hmm.
your corporation to the next level? You need a
Exactly.
visionary to do that.
Thank you so much. And that's like how you define leadership is basically how also Lee Kuan Yew brought Singapore into what it is today, right? So it's really like how he influenced people to work together as well and to follow him willingly, like what you've mentioned or highlighted. And again, it's all about influencing, being a great decision maker and a visionary as well as a leader, right?
Right.
So Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And during my introduction earlier, I've made mention about the next normal. I'm not sure how you look at it, being a sales and sales expert as well yourself. So I don't think there's such thing for you. But I just am curious to know, how would you define or describe next normal, in your case or in your
Okay.
space?
Okay. So previously, the new norm is like COVID's hit and we are working from home. Then there was
Mhm,
this great resignation, and now there's this great re-engagement.
mhm,
It depends who you ask, because if you ask employees, their new norm is like, no, we've got to go back to work. To them, that's the new norm. But then, who is this question for? If the question is for leaders, then I
mhm,
will ask the leaders, you got to be aware that it is not just about hybrid or the demographics of people.
mhm,
Now the demands are different, and that's why your interviews, the leaders all say the same thing, that the younger
yeah,
people got used to working from home, so the attitude would change and all those. But I think the new norm includes many other factors as a
mhm,
visionary leader,
mhm,
including the change in power. Perhaps a lot of power have moved from US to China. Things
mhm,
like that are important too. This could be the new norm. How
mhm,
social media is the new currency. So when you're running a business, it isn't about advertising in the TV or the newspaper anymore. It's about startups, and it's about crowdfunding. It's about being on TikTok. So the
mhm,
influencers are so powerful these days that before even you start the business, you hire your influencers first, and you say, "Can you put it, do a series of 10 for me?" And the business really come in.
mhm.
So this is also the new norm, and not just about the employee locations and how they work.
Exactly. Thank you so much for clarifying that with us. Because normally, like when we hear conversations about new normal, right? We've always like hear about like what you've said again, like, oh, the hybrid work or people having to go back, the Great Resignation, pandemic, post COVID. I mean, COVID is still here as we speak, right? Although we would normally use the term post COVID, but it's really more, so much more for leaders on having this awareness on how, what are the changes going on, and leveraging on, again, you've mentioned about social media as the new currency, and like, thinking as entrepreneurs or start up even if you are big already, right? So thank you for reminding us as if you have like a magic ball on your yeah. So um but I just wanted to shift gears more on in terms of giving as much value to our audience as well. The first three question is really so much more around like understanding from which perspective you're coming from. And the next three question will be like, I would say, the meaty part of this conversation. So from your experience, not only being a corporate leader but also working with corporate leaders, um, around the globe, what would you say would be the top three problems that most leaders would normally face?
Well, in the Singapore context, and I'm talking about Singapore context first, because you got such a diverse audience. Singapore workforce is very highly educated, and sometimes it's not a good thing also, because they always question, and that makes it very difficult to lead intelligent people.
Mhm,
And sometimes they are so fixated in that certain position, the leaders can't move them. So one of the major problems is leading people who are unwilling to follow. Okay, they think they're better than a leader. They start off with a very critical disposition. They're very skeptical. They're very cynical. So I think
mhm,
that is something that many leaders in Singapore are facing, and that
mhm,
is why there is a difference between good leaders and great leaders. Great leaders knows profiling. They know how to use the right tools and the right approach to win them over first.
mhm,
So when I have a lot of assignment, I always ask the background of the leader and of the people. So when you know the left brain people, they're more task oriented. So they just give command rather than feeling for the employees too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very important because I need to win your heart over before I can get you to do the work. So
Exactly.
I think that is one of the things that leaders would like to pay attention first of all. And if it's even possible, work with your HR and tell them, do you want more competency based or do you want more attitude based? Because competency can be trained to some extent, but
Mm-hmm.
attitude takes a lot more than a normal leader to transform the person. And sometimes they never transform, they just adapt unwillingly. So so if I could just share with you a very interesting analogy, or I heard another speaker speak when I was in Dubai. She was
Mm-hmm.
actually an astronaut trainer,
Mm-hmm.
and she trains about 200 astronauts who try to fight for 7 positions up in the space station. So it's a very prestigious thing. And one of those ways they select the criteria is if they hear any astronaut badmouth another astronaut, that astronaut is eliminated immediately.
Oh, wow.
You see the paradigm shift, and he said, "Why? How come it's so strict? Because in space there's no I, there's only we. If you think about yourself, they all die. We have to work as a team. One die, all dies.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, the criteria was so high that they base not just competency but attitude and character. So you think about that, right? So is that right or wrong? Now I put out to the listeners right now. In you may think you want I want to be if you're a small company you want to be nationwide, maybe great in the Philippines or great in Singapore, and then when your business expand you want to think global or regional. So everything you think about is how to go global. Organizations like NASA think how to go galactical. You see the difference? It's just another level. What if suddenly we go out in space and we see aliens? The demands are just so different. If you bring in people like SpaceX, Elon Musk, where he launches space satellites, and then he's thinking of colonizing Mars. Again, he's also intergalactical company. He's not just a global company, but intergalactical, and the demands are really higher.
Mm-hmm.
You see that? So is attitude important? The leaders need to ask. And to me, I think it is. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important. Yeah, I hope that gives some value.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, what I heard from you as top leadership problem will be around leading people who are unwilling to follow. And you have explained that by giving us like examples, actual examples on. It's interesting that you gave an example on NASA or like space related type of leadership, or I would say it's even like more of teamwork, right? And I totally agree with you when you say that attitude is important, because in anything that we do, right, it's always the inner work or the attitude that that affects how we behave, how we think, and how we take actions in general, right? It's all about the mindset and the attitude that we have towards the things that we do that really affects a lot of the things that comes out. Whether it's productivity, it's performance, or the outcomes that you give into your organization, right? And again, it's always like one of the top problems, really, or one of the top issues, again, as you've mentioned, is really like having or leading people, right? It's all about people, right? And I think it's really like organizing, or like prioritizing. Like what do you consider, what do you prioritize in leading in any organization and
Yeah, what
all,
does your
right?
company value and what does your company stand
Exactly.
for?
Hmm. Exactly. And I really love when you said like, oh, when you provide training, where do we start actually? Are they task oriented? You ask that question. Are they people oriented? Are we focusing on the competency or on the attitude? Because again, despite that, it's easier to provide competency based programs, right? But it's always the behavior that has to shift. You've mentioned earlier about paradigm shift, and that's very important and a key way of really having a more sustainable result for your organization. Right? Yeah,
Right.
and obviously we won't, I mean, despite that I asked the question about the problem, you somehow gave me also some uh, I would say like some not only examples but some tips already along the way. So, but if there are more like other important leadership capabilities or skills that you think or that you believe that leaders must have in this next normal to continue it effectively or to lead more effectively, what would you say would be those capabilities or skills that they must have?
Okay, so number one in order, it would be consciousness or conscientiousness, or what we call awareness. Some
Mm-hmm.
leaders, they take instruction from above and then they just say, this, you told me to do this, I'm following by the book. But I think that there's always, you need some discretionary decisions. I think that's important. And conscientiousness. So what's the opposite of conscientiousness? Being oblivion or ignorant. You don't even know what's happening around you. So no, so they just, this is instructed by my higher up, so this is what I'm going to do. No, sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
need to tell them, hey, regional director, this is what's happening in my country. I'm going to give you some information. So let's discuss about it. So that let's talk about it. So this conscientiousness is what adds value. I know what's happening in my surrounding, the changes that we talk about, the shift of
Mm-hmm.
power, cryptocurrency, all those kind of things. Okay, so that's the first thing, is the conscientiousness. The
Mm-hmm.
second thing, whether you're up there in the C-suite or you are the owner of your SME, is adapt and to react. And many people are really slow in doing that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because wow, people like me, and I'm 55 by the way. I know I look kind of young, but
Oh, yeah.
well, thank you. You need to understand, the people that taught us in school were taught by people 20 years ago. So many of the information are very old. If we do not keep up to date, we are going to be obsolete. There's this thing called reverse mentorship, which I am preaching right now. Is that
Mhm.
sometimes when you hire interns, sit them down and once a week say, you teach us what's happening out there. How are people engrossed in the social media, or what are your thoughts? So the senior leaders shouldn't be thinking that I know it all. Bring them in and then ask them, teach me something. And I learned so much, even from my kids, even the language or what they're saying about us, the boomers. Okay, so you have to adapt and to react. Don't keep having that talk down that I know it all. I went to Harvard Business School. I went to what school? No, sometimes things change. So that's the second
Mhm.
thing I think they need to have. And the third thing is what we call openness. Oh, when I talk about openness, I'm talking about complete openness. I know many leaders say, yep, I'm willing to hear you out. But very quickly they say, no, they shut you out. Complete openness is to entertain an opposing point of view without the need to accept it. Just suspend your position for a while and think about it. And as a leader, even when they tell you, hey, this is the new way of doing business, think about it. If you do not have enough quantification to say this is no good, that's it. I don't know yet. There's not enough evidence yet. If you have that openness, your company can move. And sometimes when you've already taken a position previously, like a decade ago, like you say, no, crypto won't work. Can you revisit that again? Because the technology has changed, the blockchains have changed. Okay, so that's what openness should be. If you have this three, your aptitude, the conscientiousness, the ability, the willingness to adapt, and the openness to hear opposing views, I think that makes a very holistic type of visionary leaders. Among all the other traits, visionary leaders needs to have these three.
Yeah, I really love how you summarized and reiterate actually it has to from this to this, right? From awareness, because I mean, like everything starts with awareness, right? After all, without you knowing where you are now, how can you actually go to where you want to be, right? And that points goes back to what you said, like, when you organize or when you actually train the companies, right, or the leaders within the companies, right? the you find out, are they task oriented, are they people oriented, are we going to do the program on competency based, attitude based, right? and
Yeah.
and that's like, that's your compass, right, on where you will start and how you will customize, contextualize the program for them to make it as outcome based. I mean, you're very sales sales oriented, and so that's, I believe, where you're coming from as well, right? And again, like, um after knowing where you are or having that awareness, as you mentioned, where you start, then you have to also adapt. I mean, like, are the days where like leaders are like, giving all the direction, and like people will follow you based on authority, right? Or
Yeah.
based on your level, your position. Gone are the
Yeah.
days that,
Yeah.
you know people will listen to you
Yeah.
with
Can I
just
just
your
interrupt here? Like what you're saying, that if let's say I meet a leader and the leader said, I don't believe in working from home.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is your belief, but is it possible? Is it suitable in this environment? That's the openness
Exactly.
to accept something that's against your grain. That's
Mhm.
what we're talking about. Even if you have a very strong stand for whatever reason, or for whatever past
Mhm.
experience, you say, I don't
Yeah.
trust people working from home because they're not really working from home. Okay.
Yes, and that's interesting as well, because we have all proven and experienced already in the last 2.5 years, right? That, yeah, it actually works, right? There were some companies who even like exploded in terms of their productivity, their profitability, right? Despite that they're working from home. And again, like what you've said, it's not only adapting and reacting to what it is or what it has to be, but also openness on the ideas of like, what could it be in the future, right?
Right.
And how can we, like, open up with the ideas that are coming from younger generation. I really love that concept of reverse mentorship that you mentioned. And that reminded me, I actually just produced a program recently around reverse mentorship, so it's like,
Is that
okay.
right?
That's what you mean. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing this in according to like how it should start to end, or I mean, like from where do they supposed to start as well, right? And before I proceed to my next question, I would like to invite those who are watching us live today or will watch us on a replay to like put in your question. If you have any questions for Christian, I'm sure he will be more than willing to help us or answer you. And if you have, like, you're getting aha moments or getting something out of this conversation, feel free to, like, share with us what's your take or what's your take away as well, um, in this conversation. Join us in this conversation once again, which is my usual invite for any of these interviews, right? So, the next question now is that, we have been talking about learning, leadership, and paradigm shift or generally transformation. So what do you believe is the role of learning, leadership, and transformation in order for you to thrive in this next normal?
Learning is a given. Learning is a given. You got to. It should be lifelong learning. As I tell you, I'm 55 right now. I have an
Mhm.
insatiable appetite to learn and learn new things. Imagine as a speaker and a consultant. Sometimes we work 5 days a month, and sometimes only 10 days a month, which means you got 20 days free. If we spend roughly 3 hours getting new information, can you imagine comparing us with a, let's say, an employee who's working 8 hours a day? They have very little time to learn. So
Mhm.
that is why you hire people like us, not for our time. but for our wisdom and how we process the information and return it back to you. So in
Mhm.
leaders, it's exactly the same thing. If you stop learning, you are going to be dated. You're going to
Mhm.
use something in your 1970s, 1990s, 2020s,
Mhm.
old principles. So yeah, go ahead and keep learning, never stop learning.
Mhm.
In terms of your question is what about leadership? You're asking, what do you believe the
Actually, it's generally, I would say, because I had a comment that this is like a lot of, question to put together, but it's generally probably an invitation for you to summarize, like, the last five questions I had with you in relation to learning, leadership, and transformation, and how it can actually affect, um, your performance, or basically in order for you to thrive in the next normal, right?
Mhm. Right. Uh, yep. So for leadership, I think it will go back to the other question, the three things that I talk about:
Mm-hmm.
consciousness, and then openness, and adaptability, and then openness. But something just hit me right now is that how do we only value people based on hierarchy? Like if you're a leader, you should be paid more. I
Mm-hmm.
want to do another paradigm shift here, because when you see a football team, the coach is not paid the highest. The most valuable player is paid the highest. So if you're the MVP, the most valuable player in your organization, although you're not comfortable in a leadership role, are you willing to reward the person even more than the C-suites? Can I
Mm-hmm.
just shift that for a moment? So in Singapore, very interestingly, previously the Ministry of Education in the schools, you are paid according to your seniority, so the principal gets paid more. But now they realize it's two different, totally different skill set. One's a leadership route and the other one's a skills base. So they have a master teacher, which is extremely skillful in teaching, having the same salary scale as the principal. So maybe that they might want to think about that paradigm shift. Most
Wow.
valuable player.
I love that concept or paradigm shift that you just shared with us, right? It's not really about the level, the position. When I like started, I actually always thought that, oh, I should be a C level. I should have that level for me to be able to be a leader. I actually always thought it was the title or the level, but it's interesting that in sports, actually, like what you've shared, it's really like being the most valuable player in the team, right, that gets paid more. Again, it's performance based. That's how sales are.
It could
uh,
be a researcher, it could be an ideas person, it could be a problem solver.
mhm. Yeah, very true. And also, that's again like what you've mentioned earlier. I remember, like, that's the value that we bring into the table as an external partner or um, resource, because sometimes, you don't really get to see it if you're within, right? The challenge or the problems, right?
Yeah.
And that's also like how collaborations and teamwork happens within the organization. And before I ask you the last two open questions, I just wanted to acknowledge Dr. Fred. He said this is a good interview and nice setup. Thank you so much, and thank you for
Thank you.
joining us live today. And thanks to Christian for giving us this very valuable insights from his years of experience, right? And so I'm off to the last questions, which are, I would say, very open questions, and I would normally like say as the Miss Universe. So in this case, Mr. Universe questions. So I'm curious to know, if you have a magic wand that you can use, what will you do with it?
I will eliminate the virtue of hatred. I will eliminate hatred. If if people exist without hatred, can you
Mhm.
imagine how much better the world would be? Not just in terms of our home, but in terms of society, socially, and also in the business world. Many of
Mhm.
the things that we don't dare to do, we don't do, and we don't dare to do because we are afraid some colleague will snipe us or say something rude to us, or just backstab us. If hatred was eliminated, and we approach wrongs with tenderness and graciousness. We see a
Yeah.
colleague doing something wrong, we are gracious about it, and we can reach that level actually. That's why, when I brought in about the NASA thing, I think that's what they want to know. It's an environment that's very safe, a very healthy and safe environment where people can be nice. And maybe some religious orders already have that. So yeah, what about the corporate? Because so often I am brought in and they say, the company is making really good money, but everybody's very numbers, KPI oriented. And this region, the director hates this director, and we're not working in teams. And then they bring them in and say, do a team building. I say, no, when your idea of team building, I think you're thinking about team activities. Team
Mm-hmm.
activities doesn't gel teams. If I hate you, I will make sure I find a way to hate you more during the games. Okay, so team building do not build team activities do not build team. The real team bonding is about let's talk, let's have a conversation, and let me tell you why I'm facing this problem, and let me tell you why uh, uh, I behave in such a way, and please forgive me because that's how I'm wired. And when people understand each other, then you are no more just a colleague. You're something meaningful to me. That's something I teach salespeople. If they look at you as salespeople, they're gonna give you hell. If they look at you as an individual human being trying to make a living, they're gonna be kinder to you. So that's called
Exactly.
humanization. So yeah, I would eliminate hatred.
I really appreciate that, comment from you. It's always like something that I would incorporate in some of the talks that I have recently done with HR and leadership teams in different companies or associations recently. It's really about humanizing the way we work, right? And again, it's so obvious that a lot of things can actually be um it can be resolved if we just communicate, and if we just like come from the aspects or from the energy of love, right? Instead of hatred. But for sure, I mean, without the magic wand, this is already like, something that you've been doing with the work that you actually do, like, with the training, impacting lives of other people, and educating them just in general, like, on how they should work together, how they treat their people, how they treat their customers, right? I mean, like, even without the magic one, this is already what you've been doing as well. And thank you for that message.
You're
I
very
really
welcome.
appreciate
I'm
that,
sorry, I'm losing you, Marilyn. I'm losing you.
Christian. Are you still
I'm
there?
sorry, I lost you in the last 2 minutes. The wife, your picture is frozen. Marilyn, I lost you in the last 2 minutes. The whole Wi-Fi froze.
Yeah, actually, I've realized that as well. I was just actually like highlighting what you've said, and again, thanking you for that very beautiful message. I would say that would, for now, that could possibly my most favorite part of this conversation, really about humanizing the way we work. Because again, like, it has been a message that I've been also sharing in my talks with associations and companies, with HR leaders and company leaders, in 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 the recent talks that I did as well. And mainly because, again, like, a lot of things can be resolved through forgiveness, through communications, like what you've said, right? And again, if we come from the energy of love rather than, hatred, as what you shared in your magic wand, then, everything can easily be resolved, right?
Right.
Everything would happen like in better ways. And again, like, I'm not sure if you've heard my comment earlier that, the work that you do, impacting lives, educating people, like, knowing them how to, like, shift their thinking, their mindset, how they should take care of their customers, of their people, right, is already something that, that actually contributes even without you having this magic one in order for them to eliminate hatred as well within the working environment. So I thank you for that.
May I just slip in one more last tip for the listeners?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so with this new norm and a lot of restoration, there are three things that needs to be restored or healed. Number one, of course, if your business was affected, think of the corporate level and heal the business in terms of marketing and expansion. But the second level will be your teams. Okay, so when I talk to you about your regional teams are not communicating, spend some time and even invest perhaps some resources to work this out. Because if it's just bottom line, there'll be a very unhappy environment for people to go back to work. So heal teams, heal relationships within your organization. So that's level 2. And level 3, help individuals to heal, because behind that facade of that suit or that dress that person wears back home, that person might be hurting and they'll never be in the optimal if they were not healed. So leaders, supervisors, go down and say, is everything okay at home? Is there anything we can help you with? So if you go to the root of the problem, which is your employee, all 1,000 of them, all 10,000 of them, it must start from there. And then you can have the ultimate result in terms of your corporate.
Exactly. And what I'm hearing from you in this message of restoring or healing is really so much of the inner work that we do for ourselves, for our team, and for the entire organization. That's really beautiful. And not a lot of companies are like doing this yet. Not yet, but they should. And I love how holistic the conversation is as well. So that also leads me to my last question. I'm curious to know, if you ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be? And also, because you can best answer this question, I would love to know what's the answer.
At the end of the day, you ask yourself, what's life all about and what's the meaning of life?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I spoke to a group of 16-year-olds the other day, and each time you think about a successful person, someone like Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, they are extremely successful, but they are old. And I told them this standing on stage. I said, I'm a successful person. Financially, I'm very successful. But you know what? I have lost my youth. I've lost my youth. So don't just focus on the entire journey towards being that rich guy. And one day you say, I'm very successful. But the entire journey of enjoying the journey along the way is so important. You're going to be 16-year-old once. Don't be in a hurry to be that crypto millionaire, because you just accelerate and suddenly your 19-year-old's behaving like a 29-year-old, and you miss the experience of being a youth. And I even hypothetically, just for fun, I said, how much would you sell me a year of your life, if that is possible? That magic wand, if you sell me a year of your life, what would it cost you? What would you cost? See, and a number actually came out.
Oh,
A
wow.
number actually came out. Okay, I said I buy 10 years of your life. So that's another food for thought and a paradigm shift. At the end of the day, I started off as a printer,
Mhm.
doing a printing business with my wife, and money came in, but it became quite meaningless to me. And at 30 years old, I told my wife I didn't want my tombstone to look like, here lies a great printer. But I really prefer, this is the consultant that impacts life. And
Exactly.
yeah, people would miss me when I'm gone. That would be a meaning in life.
Exactly. I really love that you've shared that. And I guess that's the reason why you're both here, right? To be able to inspire more people, to be able to like impact more lives, to be able to like really give meaning to life. Because what is life all about, right? It's really about living our purpose, being us, being you. And helping other peoples as well to be them as well, to heal as well, right?
Right.
And to live their purpose, to inspire them to do so as well, to living their passion and purpose. So thank you so much. I really had a lot of not only aha moments, inspirations. I really love the paradigm shifts that you have shared throughout this conversation. And if there's anything else that you'd like to leave our audience with, is there anything more that you'd like to share with us before we end this conversation?
Sounds like always like, can I have a last word? And then there's another last word. So this will be the ultimate last word. Hey guys, go out there and strive and to be as successful as you can. And if you make it, don't be sorry about it. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't make it, that's okay too. You
Mm-hmm.
tried. But if you do make it, then use your time, your energy, your talent, and come back and make this world a better
Mm-hmm.
place.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's really a beautiful message, Christian. And so I really appreciate, thank you for this inspiration and all the paradigm shifts that you have shared with us today in today's session. So, and again, for those who are watching us live or on a replay, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you got a lot of nuggets and inspirations from Christian as much as I do, like with all my notes here. And so join us again to create that opportunity to make this world a better place to live in, right? Because we can. And so also remember that the richest investors in the world would say that investing in yourself, yes, in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life. So with that, we would like to end this conversation with a quote from Dolly Parton that if your actions create legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much again. Thank you to our audience. And we look forward
Thank you
to
for having me,
seeing you
Marilyn.
again. Have a good day and a
Bye.
good day.